This episode of Stuck in Vermont is made possible by Hotel Vermont and Vermont Tourism.
We're very different. We're very different styles, writing as well as personality.
Well, it wouldn't have worked if we were both exactly the same.
Welcome to Stuck in Vermont, brought to you by 7 Days. My name's Ava Solberger. We are at the 7 Days offices on South Champlain Street in Burlington, Vermont. This is a very special episode because it's our 400th episode.
It really makes me spin, yeah. Told myself time and time that I'd never do this again. But it feels so good, and it feels right.
So today, we're going to talk to some unique individuals who happen to run this paper that I work for.
And I have to say, as soon as I moved to Vermont, almost the minute I stepped off the plane, I knew this was my place.
Once I got to Middlebury, I saw Vermont, similar to Pamela. I was like, this is what I have been missing all my life. There's real towns, people talking on the street when it's not 30 below zero.
They loved this place because it fit them and their personality.
Well, I think when you live in a community for as long as Pamela and Paula have, you shape it.
It wasn't just because they lived here, it was really because they knew what was going on. And they made sure that they knew what was going on.
When I was 6 years old, I remember saying to someone that I wanted to be a journalist. I didn't even know what a journalist was, I don't think.
I love talking to strangers. I love hearing people's stories. I don't even mind hearing their pitches, unless I'm on the Stairmaster.
This profession is so diverse and so constantly challenging and entertaining and informative. I mean, there is literally never a dull moment.
Today we're going to get to know Pamela Polston and Paula Routley. They were inducted into the New England Newspaper Hall of Fame this year. They've also been awarded Business of the Year by the Burlington Business Association and the Lake Champlain Regional Chamber of Commerce. And they also happen to be my bosses. That's right, Stuck in Vermont, it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for 7 Days.
Coming in!
I don't think we're upstarts anymore. I mean, a lot of people, who are reading the paper now weren't even born when we started, so to them, we're an institution. We've just always been here.
So today I get to ask them all the questions I've always wanted to ask them about how two performing artists with no business experience managed to take $68,000 and turn it into this successful publication. 20 years later, there's a lot to ask them.
Pamela was a punk rocker, and Paula was a ballet dancer.
My life has been intertwined with Paula and Pamela's life.
They're just leaders. They're role models.
You know who the P's are?
Pamela and Paula? Mm-hmm. I love the P's. They really fought for that paper and they triumphed.
In ballet, I learned that criticism can be a form of love, and that if you want to get better at something, you need to be open to corrections.
I think I'm a better writer than I ever was a singer, so it's worked out.
That's one of the nice things about being old. The path is long enough that you can see how all those stops along the way kind of brought you to where you are.
If I had done anything in a straight line, I can't even imagine that, actually.
Thank you, worthy decents. Welcome to TV land.
Seems so strange. Nothing's gone wrong tonight. Feels so right. I can't understand it. There's no trouble in sight.
I came from Omaha, Nebraska. I also was an Army brat for a while and moved around, and so I kind of got a taste of, there's another world out there, which is a really good thing to know when you live in Omaha. I moved to Vermont to go to graduate school at UVM in psychology. I really like understanding or trying to understand how the brain works, how human behavior works. I finished all my coursework, my master's degree, ABD as they say, all but dissertation. 6 months later, I was in a rock and roll band.
I was born in California. My dad was a professor at Pomona College, and then we moved to Princeton, and then we moved to Washington, D.C. My dad died last year as an astrophysicist. He wanted us to work for everything, so if I had something I wanted, I always had to pay half. So we have these old ledgers of the payments I made, sometimes as little as a dime. I wanted to be a ballet dancer when I was little. I was trained in this Soviet-era Russian ballet technique by these taskmasters, basically.
Seems so. I don't know.
I kind of went boing from the very left brain world of social psychology to being 100% creative all the time. Writing music, singing. The band was called The Decents with a Z. It was a new wave period, so everybody put Z's in things. It was all original music. Brett Hughes and I were the two brand new people. Oh, it really brought me out of myself because I'm really an introvert. It's performance, you know, I just turned into a different person. But it was hard in the beginning. I was scared. I found something in myself that I didn't know I had.
Pamela was the one that was kind of like the cultural icon in her own right, the Debbie Harry of Chittenden County, you know, she really was.
She was definitely, I think, considered a maven of that scene, that's for sure.
The Decents were pretty unique because they kind of just exploded on the scene. They were very different than most of the other acts that were playing in town at the time.
She's always had those two sides. Professional, experienced, go for it, hardworking, and the other wild side. Paula does as well, which I think led to the remarkable success of 7 Days.
I just liked the work, you know, I liked trying to get better at something and actually seeing it happen as a result of my efforts. I was the hardest worker. I sweat the most, you know, and these were like achievements. My parents didn't want me to be a professional dancer. They really wanted me to go to college. I got as far as the Joffrey School in the summer. I wasn't really prepared for New York. I was 17, so I ended up going to college. But it was like this huge disappointment. My first dream was sort of denied. Majored in French and Italian. I like being able to communicate with people even if they're speaking another language. What is that gibberish? Like, someone understands what that means. It's like a code, you know? When I was in Uganda, I learned the language. It's this language like spoken within like a 10-mile radius. I had a dark room and people had never seen images of themselves. I'd bring a photo to the market and of course they'd recognize the person. I'd watch the photo like go, like everyone's touching it and like it would come back to me like covered with flour and oil and you know, just because it had been through so many hands. And what was weird about being there was that there was no media covering our town. I mean, you still listen to the BBC to find out what was going on in Uganda. There was like a war happening in southern Sudan that kept spilling over the border, like really close to our town. Rumors would fly. You know, I had this experience of understanding how important it is to actually find out what happened, you know, get the story.
This is on go, no match for her.
The first time I set eyes on Pamela, I was actually at Middlebury College. She was performing in her band, The Decents, at the Alibi. I remember noting her. She sort of looked like Blondie. I always thought, like, you know, how weird it would be if someone had tapped me on the shoulder and said, that woman is going to be your business partner.
She would have run from the room screaming.
But we actually met when Pamela was arts editor at the Vanguard, and so I was freelancing for her. I started in journalism as a dance critic.
What did I think about her?
Oh, thank God I have a dance critic.
I definitely thought that.
I'll pay her $45 once a month.
The Vanguard had a very robust arts section, which we and a few other people carried into the successor paper, which was called Vermont Times.
I was the arts editor there, and she freelanced for me.
They were back here in Burlington in the early 80s, and I was just started out acting. Then it was really exciting for me to read that someone was writing about the stuff we were doing.
I'm really glad that we had that foundation there because I think it made it comfortable to keep working together into that paper and the arts paper that we created later, and then 7 Days.
September 6, 1995, the very first issue of 7 Days hit the stands in Burlington, Vermont. Back then we had a circulation of 12,000. Now it's 36,000. The paper used to be 28 pages. Now it's 100 plus pages. In the 20 years that 7 Days has been in Burlington, Vermont and beyond, what has not changed is its founders' tenacity and work ethic.
I mean, we have similar work ethic, and that has turned out to be the most important thing.
A lot of our differences are very compatible,
yeah,
and help drive the company, and some of our differences made us fight like sisters.
Yeah, it's like a marriage, basically. It's a marriage.
Especially when you're working 100 hours a week, which we did.
And that's in itself pretty remarkable, that they've had this long working relationship.
7 Days has been an amazing story.
This is just a gut feeling. We're going to make a paper that we want to read, and hopefully other people want to read it too.
We scrambled.
The first Wednesday was probably the worst day. We realized we had to do it again.
Pamela and Paula had the courage to say, no, we're going to go on our own and we're going to do it on our own.
There are still rumors we've got some backer, someone else owns the paper, which is untrue. People knew we knew how to do this. They knew our names and our bylines. It's a small enough place that the bank teller knew us, or parking garage attendant had heard about it. And, it's just, word gets around.
They really had to be able to run it all.
I never thought of them as business women at all, and look at them today.
I think they're both geniuses, to be honest with you.
20 years ago, it was a completely different world with regard to news media. You have all of these things that no one even thought would be news outlets really defining what news is in the state. And I think preeminent among those is 7 Days.
I think 7 Days respects the artist community in Vermont, nurtures it, challenges it.
Not only arts and culture information, but news, and also knitting together the community in a really important way.
It's a way to just keep everybody in the loop about all the cool stuff that's going on.
I've ended up doing the business at 7 Days because Pamela didn't want to. I can anticipate problems, and then I like to solve them. I also oversee the news operation.
I oversee the content for a lot of the rest of the paper. I assign a lot of the freelance stuff.
You write.
And I write. That's true. I do write
have time
still
to write.
every single week. If you're a journalist, you should have an omnivorous curiosity.
I learned early on that if you make an effort, it pays off. If it doesn't hurt, you're not trying hard enough. I push myself and I push everybody else.
What dancers do is if they get something that works, you want to make it better. But if something doesn't work, you drop it.
And I see that translating into these minor adjustments that needed to be made, that awareness and minor adjustments to go for excellence.
Do you still work 7 days a week?
Pretty much. So Pamela and I have been in the same office for 20 years.
We chose Vermont as our mission.
You have to be willing to sacrifice for it.
So yeah, I think the circuitous path is often the best one.
It's remarkable that 20 years later, not only is the paper still around, it's thriving.
I think it's one of the things that keeps 7 Days alive and vibrant is that it's ever changing.
One of the ways that we've grown over the years is we have spun off other publications.
And we love Kids VT. Oh my gosh.
I download it every week, so if I don't get a hard copy, I read it, and even traveling literally all around the world, pick up a copy 7 days and you know what's going on.
A lot of my energy now is planning for the future. We've seen people grow up with us. And it's been great having the associate publishers, like all of whom have been with us for more than 10 years each. I want people to have the experience that we had in this industry. It's such a great way to make a living and interact with the world.
We all really hope that 7 Days will still be vibrant and strong. There's just endless things to write about here, even in this tiny place.
Can you even imagine this state without Pamela Polston and Paula Routley? I can't. Not to mention the fact that I wouldn't have had a job for 8 years. I hope that 7 Days is here for another 20 years. I hope Stuck in Vermont exists for another 400 episodes, and we will get stuck in Vermont with you again real soon.
Yeah, it is kind of tedious to tell this story.
You can edit all this out.
There'll be lots of editing.
I'm sure there will be.
But I both happen to be female.
Are we?
Yeah, I
You noticed that?
I don't want to make assumptions. Being in Burlington, Vermont, you gotta be careful.
Paula exercises rigorously.
Exercise every day. It's the only controlled thing that I do. And while I'm swimming or whatever else I'm doing, I'm actually solving 7 Days problems a lot of times.
The rest of us have our epiphanies in the shower.
Yeah.
Hotel Vermont is personal, purposeful, and natural.
Rustic and modern.
Unique, independent, and unlike anything else.
It's fun, it's exciting, hip and relaxed. It's Vermont, it's Burlington.
Come down for a beer, come stay overnight. We'd love to see you.